there remains a lot to talk about. And sometimes even when I look at the content and listen to the videos, that I find that, like the videos that I've watched today where I speak and I realize it's quite complicated. It's I don't know if everyone gets what I'm saying, because I move a little bit from a position where, as I listen to myself, it looks like I make assumptions that you know certain things. And it's not necessarily so. It's not a good assumption to make. So the content, and as I share content with you, it's just my knowledge and, things. I want to say wisdom, but I don't always think I'm wise. But the knowledge that I share with you, it takes time for that knowledge to become real to us. Because keep in mind that when I speak to you coming from my experiential knowledge. I don't speak to you coming from intellectual knowledge only. The intellectual knowledge has grown in me to the place where I can say it's experiential knowledge. And I think it's also got elements of revelation knowledge. So for you to just connect with me, your primary connection would be intellectual knowledge. And therefore it's important for you to keep on thinking about what I share with you, but also try to practice some of the things. Both in terms of the posture, practice unconditional positive regard, practice congruence, practice empathy and compassion. So both the posture things of a coach, as well as the practical things, the practice things of a coach, like listening and like creating reflective spaces for people you interact with. So, and that you don't necessarily need a client for. You can practice on your friends and family, and you can, just in the way that you interact with them and communicate with them. It can make a huge difference, actually, to the way that you communicate and the quality of the relationships that you have with people by just practicing things that you learn. Practice does make perfect in this case. And the more that you practice listening, for instance, or being present. I'm going to talk tonight about being present. It's a very profound part of the meaningful conversation. And asking questions, for instance. Doing those things help a lot if you do it, wherever you find yourself. Become interested in people more than what you would like them to know who you are. That's a good paradigm shift for many of us, that we become interested in people in their lives, and we ask them questions and we empathize, and our body language and everything is engaged in the process to hear the person, and we practice in what I call intentional listening. In other words, it's listening with the intent to really hear. Because if it's not intentional listening, and especially if you've eaten too much of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, you might just be listening to get some information as to how you could make up your mind to respond to what is being said. That's not good listening. Good listening is kind of an openness to allow that person to enter your space and to enter the reflective space with you. That's good listening. And that you can practice with anyone, with your kids, with your husband, your wife, with your the lady that works in your house, or the man that works in your garden, or the person that fixes your car. Apply this stuff and keep on applying this stuff, because to build your practice might be here, but to have interaction with other people might be there. The amount of uh, opportunities to interact with people is much more than the amount of interaction with clients at this stage for most of us, or for most of you. So I just want to encourage you with those few reflections and statements that I've made. What screen are you seeing, if I can ask, Corey?
Yeah, being present, balanced life coach training. So,
Okay, thank you for that. Uh, as I've briefly remarked earlier, being present or living in the now it's the posture part of the practice of the meaningful conversation. Okay, what do I mean by that? I mean that it is a kind of a posture that you adopt. And hopefully, if one lives long enough to master being present, it becomes part of your lifestyle. Because that is fundamentally where most of us learn how to be present, is if we make it part of our lifestyle, wherever we move, wherever we interact, wherever we get in contact with people. So being present is synonymous with living in the now. That you and I live in the now, live in the present. And I'm going to try to explain to you, what it really means to be present and to live in the now. If you're not present with a client, then you're absent. That is the short and the sweet of it. If the one is not happening, then the other one is happening. So just to contextualize the whole posture of being present, it sits within the meaningful conversation. If you look at my definition there, coaching is a helping relationship where identity is facilitated through meaningful conversations and coaching tools. So being present is part, it's a sub-element of the meaningful conversation. And there is a quote of Rogers that I got that touches a little bit on the whole act of being present. It says more than that, but it also touches on, the whole act of being present. Now, Rogers says the following: how do we support others who are suffering? We see that our aim in supporting someone is not to get rid of their pain and suffering. Instead, we want to assist them to understand what the pain is trying to teach them, to find meaning in their distress. Often all we need do is be fully present to them. It also helps to be present to our own experience and be genuine in our feelings. Now, what Rogers talks about there might not apply 100% to us, because we are not only working with people that are suffering. As coaches, there's a little bit of a shift. If you're a therapist or a counselor, or you do deliverance, maybe then you work with a grouping of people or a clientele that come to you because they truly suffer. As coaches, there is a basic split there, that you do find people that are suffering that come to you for help, but you also find people that are not suffering per se. We all suffer in some way, but they're not currently suffering, and they just would like to be more of what they've already discovered of who they are. But to help people, and this is a bit of a paradox, because we think that we need to alleviate suffering and pain. And in a way it's true, but in a different way, that is not really what we are doing. It's just to alleviate suffering and pain that someone has. or if that is the aim, we don't alleviate it by taking it away from someone. We alleviate the pain and the suffering by journeying with someone through it. And I take my cue from Jesus Christ there, because he promised that he would be with us even though we go through the valley of deepest darkness or the valley of death. So it's a kind of you might not be spared that. You might not be spared the suffering and the pain, but what you can be sure of is that I will be there for you and with you. And I think what Rogers talks about here is in a similar vein, that we as coaches, we walk with people through their suffering and pain, or wherever they are in whatever season they find themselves in. We walk them through that. We are like the Holy Spirit in a way. You know, he's a helper, he's a support, he's the one that comes alongside and props us up if needs be, and helps us to walk through whatever we have to walk through. And then, as Roger says there, and I agree with that, sometimes all it takes is to be fully present with someone, to give your full attention to that person. And I can go with this statement in all its aspects, and I don't feel it clashes with anything that I believe. Then Paul Tillich made this statement. Tillich is quite a well-known theologian. I'm not so keen on theologians. They're a bit too abstract and maybe theoretical about the Bible. And I'm a bit practical when it comes to the Bible itself. I believe it's a vibrant book that should not only be studied but lived and speak. You need to speak it, pray it, live it, etc. But in any case, he made a profound statement saying the first duty of love is to be present in our listening. It's worth our meditation, this statement. And by that I mean go and think about this statement. Read it 100 times. And ask the Lord to break it open to you. Because here it's got all the elements of what you and I are about. Love, being present, listening. So to be present in your listening, to really put everything aside and to be there for a client, that is an expression of love. To be honest, sometimes I struggle myself with assessing the value that I might give someone by being there and being present for someone. You know, it's a bit more abstract. It's a bit less tangible. That my presence for you and my attention and awareness to listen to you and to hear you and to try to understand empathetically your world is not that tangible. It sits on the level of what I call beingness. And it is practiced on the level of beingness. You know, compare it to, let's say I was a mobile salesman. This is very tangible. When I give you this, there's an exchange that you need this and I can give this to you. It's very tangible. But when I sit and listen to you, it's not that tangible. Does it make a difference? It does. I had a very nice conversation this morning with Carla Botha. I know Carla for very long now, and we have a good journey, very fruitful journey. And she offered actually, you know, if I need a space where I can reflect and think about things, that she will allow me that space if I want to use the offer. And I said, yes, I would love to. So we sat this morning and chatted, and afterwards I felt so refreshed. I felt so good. And in a way, it's good for me to have such an experience, because it reminds me of how valuable it is when someone gives his or her time to someone else, when someone gives his or her presence to someone else. And it's just a good experience. And I thought to myself, if that is what I bring to another person, then it's valuable. Might not be tangible, but it's very valuable. So being present, the fundamental posture and practice of being conscious in the here and now. That's what it really means. That's what it really means to be present, is to be conscious in the here and the now. And you'll see a little bit later, I'm going to just explain to you my understanding of time. And it's important to have a little bit of an understanding of what time actually is. Because the present is the now. And the now is here. And what we can give our clients by being present is to be in the awareness of our client, to be conscious of our client. And one of the videos you might have heard me, or maybe two or more videos, there is a bit of repetition with some of them, where I said what's beautiful for me is the Zulu. My son studies Zulu, and he's talking Zulu, and you know, I'm so delighted by it actually. And we chatted about the whole greeting in Zulu. And I asked him what Sawubona means, because sometimes I would ask Zulu people what Sawubona means. And they would say it means hello, and I say no, it doesn't mean hello. It means I see you. So for me, it's such a beautiful greeting. And then the response is, I'm alive. So when a Zulu person responds to you see me, the response in their language is I'm alive. And we've been talking about that, and I told him I didn't know the second part, that the response of greeting back is actually I'm alive. But isn't that profound when you think of it, that the moment I see you, I greet you with the Sawubona, I see you, you come alive, you come into your own. You have the experience and you express it in your greeting that you are alive because you see me. So that's the kind of posture, the kind of atmosphere I believe you and I should carry within ourselves when it comes to seeing our clients and being present with them. So being present means it's a total and complete awareness of the current moment. If you think about that, and if I can explain it this way, it's a bit like our relationship with God. You know, God is present always because he's omnipresent. So he is everywhere, always. He doesn't move. But you and I could easily say in a day, and large parts of a day, that we have not been aware of him. So does that mean he wasn't present? Or does it rather mean, no, my awareness, my consciousness of him was not focused on him. It was not with him. I was not aware of him, but he was there. It's that kind of thing that you focus your complete and total awareness on the client and the world of the client. That's very much how empathy, for instance, is defined by many people that think about empathy. It's that being there with the client. And like the Sioux tribe, you know, North American Indian tribe, the Sioux tribe, it's spelled S-I-O-U-X. It's pronounced Sioux. They've got a proverb that says, I will not judge my brother unless I've walked a day in his moccasins. So it's that kind of awareness of that world of that person, that kind of I'm placing myself empathetically into the world of that person. But to be able to do that, I need to be in the here, in the now. I need to be present. So being present is much more than simply being physically present with a client. You and I can be physically present with a client. Like in our relationship with God, we are physically there, but we are not present in mind, not present in attention or focus. Being present is the essence and fundamental prerequisite of the reflective space. So for us to create a reflective space with a client, when we do sit with a client, means that we should be there. Now, for some of you, it might be, listen, I know how this works, and that's fine. Praise God that you understand what it means, and you can practice the actual being present in the here and the now, in the moment. But for some others of us, it might take time to get there, because our minds are very busy. I know I've got ADHD or ADD, and my mind is very busy. And it really took me long as a coach, maybe as a psychologist in the beginning, it took me very long to master this that I'm sharing with you here. I didn't know about this when I was young and when I was a people helper. I just wanted to listen to my client because active listening was the terminology that you are taught, how to actively listen to a client, which is very important. And it's very similar to my understanding of what I call intentional listening. But to be present is something that if that is not there, then we don't create a reflective space. Then we're not busy with creating a reflective space. So it's kind of the prerequisite. If I'm present with you, then the potential for the reflective space to emerge is very high. Being present demands the coach's full physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual attention to the client for the duration of the coaching session. So if I am present with a client and I can maintain it for a 60-minute period, I'm doing very well. So it's physical, I am there in body, obviously, but also listening to the client and thinking about the client and what she shares of her narrative or her life story, but also emotional, empathetically moving into the client's world. And then I give a lot of focus to spiritual attention, that I'm aware of any prompting of the spirit within me. So being present, if you look at it from the outside, it looks very passive. It's just sitting. You can think this person is just sitting. But my experience of the internal world of the coach, my internal world as a coach, when I am present with a client and I'm practicing intentional listening, it is very, very busy within me. Not chaotically busy, but it's very focused and it's very involved and it's very engaged. And if you were to look at me from the outside, you might think I'm just sitting. But I can honestly tell you my internal experience is quite engaged. So there is full attention on all levels that I have in any moment in time with my client when I'm present with a client. Now, at first, when you do the fourth course, and you get your volunteer clients, you will have 2 clients that you have to see in a week, 2 hours. And you will gauge for yourself then, how good are you? How effective are you at being present with a client? My practice currently is not that busy. But there was times in the past that I saw 8 clients a day in the 8 hours that I worked in a day, which is very hard work. And I can honestly tell you that to be present with 8 clients in a day over the time span of 8 hours in a day is very draining, because it's very focused kind of work that you do when you are present with someone. But it means that you are on all levels continuously aware of that person or people that you sit with. Being present is the first step and creates the right atmosphere for the coach to listen intentionally. I don't believe, as much as I don't believe that you are creating a reflective space without being present, I also believe that intentional listening is not possible if you're not present. To really listen and to really hear a client. And you can maybe draw a distinction there, like I do, that listening is an act of your ears. It's the sound that enters your ears. And hearing is actually an act on a different level. It's how your brain constructs and what sense your brain makes, your mind makes, of the sound of the words that enter your ears. So to really listen intentionally is both the act of hearing and the act of listening. And without being present, that's not possible. And then being present is the prerequisite for being heard. It's basically the same as the previous statement I made, but it's just from the perspective of the client. The client will not feel heard when he or she discerns that you are not present. I can pick up, and maybe you can testify of this in your own experience, that I can see when someone is not present when I speak to them. I don't know if it's just a discernment thing. I don't know if it's just when I look into their eyes and I see it's glassy and it's like off in a distance. Whatever it is, we have this ability to discern that someone is not with us. It's not present. And when that happens, it's like, what's the value of speaking? What's the value of sharing my story with you? So for the client to be heard and for the client to experience this, I'm heard, I'm seen, you and I need to be present. Being present means the coach brackets and reserves her knowledge of good and evil in order to be wholly present with and available to the client. So you bracket your judgments, put them aside and be present. You bracket your opinions, put them aside and be present. Be present, and the whole act of being present is much less a kind of a judgmental posture, as it is just to be there. I don't know, sometimes we as Christians, we sing songs about we love your presence, God. And do we truly understand what it means for him just to be present without speaking, without words? And that is sufficient. It's enough. As a coach, you and I also need to grow into understanding that our presence in a group, maybe you do team coaching, or your presence with a client, or your presence with a couple if you do relationship coaching, is sometimes very powerful without words. Sometimes you can just sit with a client. And you've heard this expression previously by either myself or someone else, that we hold space for one another. It's a very, very beautiful thing that I've learned from Koos, my mentor, that he used to encourage me and say, Nico, just hold space for someone. Don't feel you need to jump in. Don't feel you need to be the savior for that person in a moment. Just be present for that person. It's very powerful. It had a great impact on me. And therefore, I can share with you all this I know now today of what it really means to be present. But sometimes it's just holding space. And in that space, words would be too much. Words would be not necessary. I've had experiences where I sat with clients without words for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. There was a client, and that's sort of my record. We sat for 45 minutes and said nothing. I don't say that happens all the time. I'm just saying that sometimes just being with someone, especially if they mourn a loss, or especially if there's just so much chaos that they cannot make sense, and you are present, then it means a lot. Even though it seems to be a passive, just sitting. Attach, hear me here, attach some value to your presence, especially if you share it with someone else. If God is like that he says, I want to be amongst you. Who's building a house for me where I can come and dwell with you? Then it's valuable. Presence itself is valuable. But do yourself a favor and look upon yourself in this way, that even your presence is valuable to other people. You might not think about it all the time and every day that your presence is valuable to people, but do entertain that truth, that reality, because it is. In being present, the coach attempts to deeply understand the client's world. It's that kind of empathetic moving into the client's world, that you want to understand the world of the client. Being present makes empathetic understanding possible. It's actually just to echo the previous statement. And then being present makes intentional listening possible. Now, I want to explain to you how I see time, because understanding a little bit about time, or at least have a basic framework of time, since when we talk about being present, we talk about being in the here and in the now. Two things indicated there is place and time, here and now. Now, the time for me, in a very simplistic, basic understanding, is something that never stops. And if you look at the tenses of time, we've got basically 3 tenses of time. And this you can take as universal. In all languages, actually, this exists. In all human experience, this exists. That we've got a past, we've got a present, and we've got a future. Now, how time works for me and my description of time in a simplistic model of understanding it is that time never stops. We are confined to time. It's a very difficult concept if you want to move outside of that and want to place yourself empathetically where God is. He's beyond time. He's eternal's past and eternal's future. There was no beginning, there's no end. And what he is now, he is forever. Very difficult to understand that unless we meditate on it to understand our Father better. It's possible to understand those dimensions of him being beyond time. We are confined to time. And we live in time, and the 3 modes of time, as I've said, is that we've got this past, and we are actually, listen to this and try to grasp what I'm saying here. We are moving out of the past into the future. That happens by the speed of milliseconds, even nanoseconds. We're moving out of the past into the future, and where the two meet, there we get the now. So life in experience is constructed for us that we've got millions, if not billions, of nanoseconds where the past meets the future, and the moment the two meet, we get now, 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 now. This is the now. And let me tell you, I'm going to make a statement. This is a pen. That statement that I've just made about this is a pen is now in the past. This is the pen. The moment I made that statement right now, it was the now, but it's already in the past. And I'm sitting here contemplating to do it again, looking to the future, and I'm going to do it again now. Just give me 1 or 2 seconds. This is a pen. That statement is already in the past now. And I've contemplated to do it in the future. And where the past met the future, and the future was entered by the past, there we get now. That's how I understand time. And as I said, it never stops. It always continues. We will be rid of time when we hit eternity and leave the planet. Whenever you're going to do that. And it's by grace God decided about that. But that is a basic understanding of time. Now, true awareness happens actually only in the here and now. Let me try to explain it and build on my basic understanding of time. So in the time domains or the tenses, we get the now, we get the past, we get the future. Within yourself, within your client, within us as people, from here now, in this moment that we've stepped into as I'm speaking, and everything that happened behind us is captured and recorded and held within us in something we call memory. Remember when I said this is a pen about a minute or two ago? That is captured in your memory. It is placed in your memory, and it's accessible, and you can go and get it. And memory is also living on different levels of ease of accessibility. Some things, because it happened long ago, it's still part of your memory, but to access it might be quite difficult. It's possible to access it because I believe that we are one huge recording system, and everything that has happened with you is still recorded within you, in your body, in your mind, in your spirit. But it's held within us, in you and me, in what's called memory. And then in terms of the future, we can access the future with our imagination. And don't go there to think of imagination as something scary, or it's unscriptural or non-spiritual, or it's not good. Imagination is a capacity and ability that God has created within the mind of the human, so that we can project ourselves into the future to think about the future. Whether it be prophetically, whether it be when you do vision creation for a company, whether you plan a holiday in December, it's through your imagination that you have access to that. But true awareness in the here and now is where everything of who you are is present. Now, this is important what I'm saying here, that your past is only accessible through mind, which is great, but it's not complete. Your future is fundamentally and primarily accessible through imagination. But the now, where you and I look at one another here on these screens, we can be now present to a much fuller extent of our experience than just through the memory or the imagination. The now is actually the only time that we can be fully engaged with life and what it offers us and what we have to deal with in a moment. True awareness can only happen in the now. Memory awareness can happen about all the things of your past, and imagination awareness can happen with everything that you think about that is yet to come. But true awareness, hear my words right now. Look at my hands. This awareness is fully available to you. And that is the kind of, and I'm grappling for descriptions to tell you how powerful it is actually to live in the here and the now. And since it's a kind of a lifestyle, it's not just something reserved for you and I when we sit with a client. It's something that could be cultivated in every day of our lives, that we are present in the here and now. Now, there again, you can see on the screen are the 3 tenses of time. Now, I just want to give you a little bit of a model for you and I to understand elements that I would also suggest one look at when you do coaching with a client. Because what I'm communicating here with you is that you get people, and maybe you yourself are one of those people that live more often in the past. If that is the case with you, that you live often in the past, it means that you struggle to be present. Or you get other people, and I know I was one of them. I used to be one of them, that I live more in the future. Look at possibilities, look at, outcomes that are potentially possible, that kind of thing. Look at potential of people that still need to be released, or if my current situation was too tough to handle, then I would escape going to the future. Dreaming, even daydreaming about a better kind of life. Now, if we work with clients, you might find that a large segment of them might be trapped in the past in a way, proverbially. Some of your clients might be trapped in a future, escaping to that. And then a segment of your clients might be able to live in the present. Be that as it may, in this little model, what I would like to describe is just to show you some elements, and I'm not going to go into great depth about those elements, but tell you just certain elements that I've found that could help us and help our clients to live more fully in the present. Now, what I've done with this little model is just to say, in my understanding of time, there's a past. And all of us can testify of negative things that happened in the past. And all of us can testify of positive things that happened in the past. There's not one person I've met, and maybe there are people like that, I might just not have met them, that only had a positive past or only had a negative past. And the same goes for the future. Some people might look forward to a negative future, be very concerned and worried and negative about the future. And some people might just look out, especially if you're an extreme optimist, might look for a positive future. Be that as it may, if you are a person that often live and escape to the future, you might think about both those things, negative and positive things that might happen in your future. Now, let's just dig a little bit deeper into the past, looking at negative past and positive past. Now, the question that I'm trying to answer here is, how can we get, if you're a person that lives more in the past than in the here and now or the future, how can we get you to become present? Now, I think forgiveness is one of the things that can really help us to get out of the past. I cannot uitgepraat raak, stop talking about the power of forgiveness. It is beyond human description, the power of forgiveness. It is the first thing that you and I received when we came to Jesus Christ and bowed our knees before him, was forgiveness. It is one of those things that maybe on a daily or a weekly basis we need, is forgiveness. And I believe if we can lead, ourselves or our clients sometimes through processes of forgiveness, we can unlock for them the reality that they might be captured in the past through forgiveness. And since we've got different dimensions of relationship, some people or yourself might need to forgive God for what he allowed in your life. Or you might need to forgive yourself for things that you did to be very stupid and, so unnecessary that you've done. Or there might be other people that you need to forgive. But forgiveness is one of those things that unhook us from the past. Another thing is making peace with things that have happened in the past, which you and I didn't have any control over. That will also help us sometimes to go through a process to be aware of those things that we still need to make peace with, and then to journey with God around those things until you come to a place of making peace with those things. And then in terms of the positive past, what do we do with that? You don't have to do much with that. You can just celebrate it. Bring it into your moment, into your here and now, and merge that beautiful experience, and you bring it into the here and now, and you celebrate it in the here and now. That's how you bring the positive past into the here and now. As much as you have to unhook yourself from the negative past, the positive past you can bring into the here and now by celebrating whatever was great. And like I say, we all have something that we can be very thankful about. Celebration is a powerful way of living life, and thankfulness goes along with that. Very powerful. Then let's just briefly look at the future. If you've got a positive future and a negative future, how can one prepare for a positive future so that you don't continuously ruminate about a future that you would like to inhabit, but how can we go there and construct it, think about it in such a way that we sort of conclude the positive future so that we don't go there too often and then be stolen away from the present. I believe two things fundamentally is just to discover your identity, to define your identity, both your purpose as well as discovering your potential. Understanding both the blueprint that God has for your life as well as understanding the potential that's living in you to fulfill that purpose. You and I need to take our clients sometimes through processes where we help them to discover their purpose and to discover their potential. And that helps them to not forever escape to the future and be stolen away from the present. And then in terms of the negative future, how can we help people that continuously go there and think about a future, ruminate about it, worry about it, but they can do nothing about it? I believe in mind renewal. In psychological terms, it's called cognitive restructuring. Restructuring the cognition, your way of thinking. In biblical terms, I'm talking about Romans 12 verses 2. Be not conformed to the patterns of this world, but be changed by the renewal of your mind. the more you and I can populate our own minds or help our clients to populate their minds with truth, the more they will be set free from a negative future. So mind renewal, continuous mind renewal, through repetition of scripture or truth statements or even worship or prayer are very powerful ways in which we can renew the mind. And then the last one that I want to mention now is simply relationship building. If you and I regard relationships as important, especially in our own support structure, and I believe we do, then building those relationships is a kind of a safeguard. Just think about it. The place where you really should, and hopefully many of us do, feel safe, where we can be truly us, is in the home, with your closest family. And building those relationships will safeguard you to just want to think about a negative future. So these things that I've mentioned here is just a little model that I've worked into my own processes of coaching to help people, my clients, to help myself, because I practice these things I talk about, to help myself and to help my clients, to, when these things are done more regularly, even the things about how to deal with a negative past, positive past, negative future, positive future, if those things are done regularly, it can help us to come to the here and the now and to live with a continuous awareness of the present. I see our time's up. What an amazing yard. There's a lot to think about. And I'll share the webinar later this week. If you need to go and watch this one again, do so. If you can work some of the elements that I've talked about tonight into your own coaching, you would do your clients a huge favor, and yourself as well. Just a last note to some of you. If you need to forgive yourself, please do so. It really should go without me saying this. And if you have asked God to forgive you, please accept that He has, because He has. So that would be your homework for the week. It's forgiveness. Go and forgive yourself. Forgive those people that have hurt you. We all have to do that. And it's a very liberating experience. Thanks.
Okay,
Thanks,
Nico.
Nico. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nico.
Baie dankie Nico.
Dankie Nico, lekker
Baie
aand
dankie.
vir almal.
Was awesome.
Dankie
Dankie.
Nico.
Thanks,
Dankie
Nico.
Nico, lekker aand weer.
Baie dankie, Nico. Lekker aand verder.
Baie dankie Nico.
Baie dankie Nico.
Dankie Nico. Lekker aand.
Nico.
Cheers, Nico.
Peace, brother. Bye-bye, son. Stefan Dolf, ek sê
Bye.
bye.
Bye Nico, ja, hy het gaan werk, so die man is besig.
Sê vir hom
Mooi aand. Ek sê so.
bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Mr. Pitsy.
Bye, Nico.
Bye-bye, Nico. Bye-bye. This was powerful. This was powerful. Thank you. Thank you.
You enjoyed my comrade.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great.
Bye-bye, Johnny.
It's world class. Unbelievable.
Leave me.
Bye-bye, Dickie Lady.
Bye-bye Nico.
Bye-bye, Naledi.
Dat was interessant.
Bye Nico.
Bye-bye, Corrie. Dankie vir vanmiddag se hulp. Ek waardeer, hoor.
Right, Johnny, groot plezier. Baie blessings.
Bye-bye, Ignet.
Bye, Nico. Lekker aand. Die klank was awesome vanaand.
Here, dankie. Dankie, Jesus. Ek waardeer.
Ja.
Bye, Nico.
Blessings vir jou, Jackie.
Cheers hoor, bye.
Bye-bye.